It's Wednesday, the 25th of March, 2026. Welcome to the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed, where we give you the top 5 business stories you need to know in just 5 minutes. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, 5 stories, 5 minutes. Let's roll with story number 1. Australia and Europe have finally signed a free trade deal after 8 years of negotiations in a move that signals the determination of economies to keep trade relatively free despite US tariffs. Under the deal, most European-made electric cars will be spared from Australia's 33% luxury car tax, while the general 5% tariffs on EU cars will be scrapped. Local miners will be blocked from discriminatory pricing of critical minerals for EU customers, critical minerals of which Australia, must be said, has an abundance, are in high demand for everything from aircraft to phones to green energy. And Aussie cattle farmers will be able to export up to 30,000 tonnes of beef to Europe under an annual tariff-free quota, although a safeguard mechanism will still protect EU farmers from a sudden surge of Australian exports.
European food into Australia will now be tariff-free. Think wine, chocolate, ice cream, some fruits and veggies, cheese, the big one as far as I'm concerned. It's considered a sensitive commodity. It'll take 3 years to reduce those tariffs. The two sides have also compromised over the issue of geographical indicators, which are designed to protect the status of food or beverages produced from a specific location. Feta, Prosecco, wine came into that one. Under the deal, pretty much all tariffs on Australian exports to 27 members of the European Union will be eliminated, with the exception of steel. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said there's about $10 billion in value to Australia each year.
The thing about this, Sean, is that the deal, and others like it in recent months, very much highlights that Western democracies, apart from the US, believe in open trade. While it still needs to get through Parliament here and the European Parliament as well, it is considered a done deal. Negotiations for the agreement began under the Turnbull government in 2018, collapsed in 2023, over disagreements about agriculture, but it was actually the threat of Trump protectionism that spurred these talks on. And as well as the free trade agreement, Australia and the EU have also struck an agreement on security.
That's right. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen is in Australia. She addressed the House of Representatives yesterday. She talked about Australia and Europe's security being increasingly intertwined in a harsh and unforgiving world. She went on, she said, "The world we live in is brutal, harsh and unforgiving. It feels upside down. What we knew as certainties are in question. The comfort blanket of yesterday is ripped away. It is confronting." She then, in a veiled hint of what's going on in other parts of the world, she said, "We're sending a strong signal to the rest of the world that friendship and cooperation is what matters most in times of turbulence."
Yeah, well said. All right, on to story number 2. The ACTU and employers are at loggerheads, perhaps unsurprisingly, over the size of the next minimum wage rise, with the peak union body asking the Fair Work Commission for a 5.5% increase, while the employers are saying anything over 3.5% would make the economy unstable. The Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry has backed a 3.5% increase, saying its claim was based on the RBA's target inflation band of 2 to 3%, plus some allowance for productivity.
The ACTU's claim, it said, was due to the Middle East conflict and Reserve Bank interest rate rises. It's reserved the right to make a bigger claim if inflation is higher than expected. Headline CPI last year, 3.8%, expected to hit 4.2% about mid-year, depending on fuel prices and how long the war in Iran goes on.
Story number 3, I reckon this one is really, really concerning, Sean. The Prudential Regulator has warned that 1 in 7 houses are currently uninsured, and that could rise to 1 in 4 by 2050 as the price of premiums soars. That would be about 1 million homes without adequate insurance. Stress testing from the Australian Prudential Regulation Authority says that regional and rural communities would be disproportionately affected and could actually hit 40% in rural areas by 2050.
That's right. So APRA looked at how climate change could affect home insurance affordability and underinsurance. It considered what it called 2 severe but plausible global climate-related scenarios projected out to 2050. 1, much worse weather conditions. 2, economic impacts from the transition to a lower emissions economy. It found that under both scenarios, climate-driven pressures on insurance premiums could significantly widen the nation's insurance gap. Basically, it just gets too expensive for many people to take out insurance. Overall losses from weather-related events could rise from about $7 billion today to more than $16 billion by 2050.
Story number 4, the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission has said that it is closely monitoring the domestic airline industry as the Middle East conflict disrupts international air travel and pushes up the price of jet fuel. Flight cancellations, route diversions and airspace closures have increased costs and shifted passenger demand to Asian hubs, putting upward pressure on airfares where capacity is constrained.
Yeah, I mean, of course, also you've got jet fuel prices, which are a concern. While major airlines hedge part of their fuel needs, sustained higher prices could drive up higher domestic fares as well. The competition watchdog said carriers must avoid misleading consumers about the reason for any price increases.
Last one, story number 5. An oil supertanker hauling 2 million barrels of Iraq's crude oil has made it through the Strait of Hormuz, according to tanker tracking data. It is the first vessel observed moving Baghdad's barrels through the waterway since it all but closed to commercial shipping at the start of the war. The Omega trader, managed by Japan's Mitsui OSK Lines, signalled over the past few days that it had reached Mumbai, according to Bloomberg. Its prior signal before it reached India, had been from inside the Persian Gulf more than 10 days ago. But how's this for confusing? Mitsui OSK has then said in a statement that none of its vessels had made the crossing, adding that it was monitoring the situation on a 24-hour basis and continuing to gather information.
And it'd be a very courageous captain and crew if they had made it. Meanwhile, plenty of airlines cancelling flights. Cathay Pacific have done it. Emirates, Qatar, Lufthansa, Singapore Airlines, Etihad, all reduced schedules around the region.
Okay, there we go. The top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. Thank you very much, Sean.
Thanks, Michael.
It's Wednesday, the 25th of March, 2026. Remember to hit follow on the podcast. And if 5 minutes isn't enough, you can find our longer daily show called Fear and Greed, wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed. Have a great day.